You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman, and I am Chairman of Branford Inland Wetland Commission. I will now open the Commission's regular monthly meeting of September 25th, 2025. It is now 7 o'clock. This evening's meeting will be conducted as a virtual meeting using the Zoom software conference platform. It's being held in accordance with Connecticut Public Act 22-3 and the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations of the town of Branford. Documents referenced during the meeting are available at the town hall or on the agency's webpage. The final agenda for tonight's meeting was filed September 23rd and is posted on the town's website. Any changes from staff regarding tonight's agenda?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. No changes, but I will note that item 4B we did get a withdrawal that has been withdrawn, and I will be suggesting that we table and continue items 4C and 5A, but we'll go into that when we get to those items.
Okay. Branford Community Television will be recording and broadcasting tonight's meeting. Thankful for their efforts to provide service to the community at large. And for those speaking at this evening's proceeding, please be conscious so that you position your camera so that your face is visible on the recording. Also, to ensure a complete and accurate record for the discussion this evening, each time a statement or comment is made during the meeting, speaking party must announce his or her name before articulating any comment. This applies to any party wishing to participate. Those wishing to speak may use the raise your hand feature to indicate such a desire. Also, once the meeting has begun, please mute the microphone when you're not speaking. Do the roll call at this point. Commissioner Goklowski.
Commissioner Goklowski present. And I'd also like to state for the record that I did review the tape from September 11th, 2025 of the regular meeting that I was not able to be in attendance.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Boda. Name changed. I think I heard present. Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman present, and I was not present at 9/11 meeting, but I have reviewed the tape and the minutes, and for the record, I'm prepared to discuss items from that meeting.
Okay, we have a quorum for this evening. All commissioners are seated and are able to vote. Is there any commissioner on any of the agenda items this evening that need to recuse themselves? And welcome, Commissioner Sotomayor. Please indicate your presence by indicating present. You're muted, sir. Commissioner Sotomayor, welcome. Please indicate your presence by saying present. And we got a technical issue, I think.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm late. I can hear you now, Peter. Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. We have 5 commissioners, and therefore all are seated and able to vote. We have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, September 11th. Anybody want to make a motion to approve those minutes? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, regular meeting of the commission of September 11th, 2025. Is there a second?
Commissioner Goklowski, since I reviewed the tape, I've stated on record that I will second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion, further comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Commissioner Boda, I abstain.
Okay.
Is my sound
First
okay?
up is an
I can hear you.
application. Somebody speaking?
Sorry,
First
I was
up-
back.
First up is an application for review, Branford Inland Wetland 250801, 25 Blackstone Avenue, Mirror Lake, the vegetation removal and aquatic pesticide permit. We had a discussion about this previously. I think we were looking for some additional information. Jamie, you want to take that away?
Sure, Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So at the last meeting, the commission determined that anything that fell under a deep aquatic pesticide permit application was not within their purview. And there was some invasive species removal, namely knotweed, that the commission determined was as of right. However, we're looking at the native brush removal, tree removal, cattail removal, and whether or not those fall within the scope of a permit. So we did receive a marked up GIS map today, kind of showing the location of those activities and some additional information, and some photos. I have not really had a time to fully review it yet, but we do have the applicant here, and he can probably walk us through it pretty quickly. Would you like for me to screen share the GIS map to help facilitate that review?
Yeah, it'd be great.
All right, is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
I don't know if you can zoom in, Jamie. Maybe it might be easier to read it.
You want to start on the north side or south side?
Let's start with the reeds and cattails, I guess. That's the easiest. So, as we discussed at the last meeting, there's a section of cattails, which I've included a couple photos of. We can go to the photos in a minute, I guess. And I apologize, but I'm limited on my resources. I don't have a lot of graphics programs here, but the outline in the native green is the cattail area that we discussed last time. There's some additional photos of that. We're just going to trim it for now. The town's vendor won't be applying any herbicide to that, so we'll apply herbicide in the spring, which is well within the scope of its the application that we filed with the DEP if it's approved, and also within the manufacturer's recommendations. It's the last couple. There you go. That's one of them. So this is all from the yard, and then I believe it's it might be number somewhere around 8 or somewhere in there. I think there's one also from Pine Orchard Road. It's near the beginning. Might be even earlier, I guess.
Looks like it jumps from 7 to 11. I only have 23. Oh, here we go.
So that's from Pine Orchard Road. So that's viewing it from the roadside. If you step into the underbrush there. So we would trim that down to the water line, remove all the debris, and then treat it with an herbicide in the spring and see how we do. You can also saw that yellow flower in the water is considered a nuisance as well, but we won't be treating that until we get more information through the agricultural extension. And then I guess, are there any questions on the cattails?
Yeah, Commissioner Goklowski here, Mr. Holtz.
Yes, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Is this going to be an ongoing situation that you're going to have to be cutting back this vegetation on a regular basis?
If we just cut them back, yes, it'll be, yearly be an ongoing maintenance issue, most likely. If we treat them successfully, then according to the literature, you'll get some reemergence possibly, that you'll trim back and then treat again, but that typically once you treat them once or twice, you end that difficulty. But there's also knotweed in there also, which is considered invasive as well. It's webbed through it. And when I was there today, I actually walked down into it, and you can see there's also where it's drier, the Virginia creeper or mile a minute, and that stuff is getting in there too. So that's just going to continue to populate.
Okay.
Right. This is Commissioner Boda. Why are you removing cattail?
It's going to continue to grow, and it builds land, and we're trying to preserve the watercourse and the park. And as it continues to grow, it'll block the view, and eventually it'll take over the entire shoreline of the pond.
Yeah. So this is for aesthetic purposes. I mean, so the cattails are native species, and they provide function. They actually do quite a bit of environmental services. So, and all ponds like this certainly fill in over time. They turn into marshes, emergent marshes. That's a natural progression. So yeah, I guess I'm a little unclear. The goal is to keep this what kind of pond?
Well, it's a lake. It's aesthetic. It's a part of a park that we have adjoining it. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we want it to eventually become a meadow. And in this area specifically, there's already a buffer with the lawn, and then she also has there's also some other whatever you want to call it, weeds and low-lying brush that will prevent that us acting as filtering already. So yes, the cattails do provide some habitat, but and filtering, but I don't think in this application they're doing that much. There's plenty of other shoreline with nooks and crannies, and we have the whole other side that's got low on the left side of the map. That's got low-lying brush and overhanging trees and all kinds of wildlife support.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. The GIS map I have here doesn't show the drainage, but the pond is part of the drainage network in the area as well. So it does convey stormwater.
You can see in one of the other photos in series 1 through 7 that this entire lower southern end of the pond has become a muckland. So this is on the left of that is the spillway where the water enters, and you can see in probably 3 or 2 maybe, I don't have the photos in front of me, I apologize, or later in the series to the right, you can see that it's all converted, that whole area is already converting somewhat to meadow, and we'd like to preserve it as a lake. At least that's the neighbors and the more local population that does, go there by occasionally. And the more it fills in, the more problems we're going to have with algae and et cetera, and we're not going to support the fish population.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Question on the herbicide. You're going to be cutting in the fall, I assume, on the cattails?
Yes, sir, if permitted.
And then the herbicide, does it have preferred water temperature to be effective? Is that why we're waiting until the spring, or
we're waiting on that spring because we have to get a DEEP permit, and the rec department and the first selectman's office has asked us to use that vendor that the town uses for all the other ponds, and according to Dale Izzo, there was no plan to treat this. When I received her email, at least, I'm sure we might be able to add it to the schedule, but obviously there's a trip charge. So waiting till the spring should not have that much more impact on it. As far as the temperature went, I don't believe the water temperature is the limiting. But most of those are 40 to 85 degrees applicable.
Yep. Got it.
And then if we
recording in progress.
Was there any more questions on the cattail area, or do you want me to move along, or I don't want to keep you forever.
Keep going.
All right, Jim, can you bring it up? So then the yellow portion is just overgrown with poison ivy, knotweed, creeper, mile a minute, wild thorn bushes, burning bush, and tons of poison ivy. There's also the red circles are all dead trees that would get removed at some point as part of this or on the public works schedule. The living trees would be preserved. Those trees would be taken down to stump height and then left for habitat or whatever. And that's that you saw that area in those first 7 photos. And then on the left is just a disaster where the spillway and stuff is. So that's up where any picture after, I believe, 21. So there's the dead trees we just skipped through. So 20 is the, I guess it's later than I thought. All right, so if we start with that picture there, that's the park portion of the grassy portion of the park, and Public Works has planted a couple trees you can see to the right. And then to the left, where you see that clump of, you'll see a dead tree all the way to the left of the photo. And then the next tree over is struggling, but will be left. And then to the left of that tree, there's another dead tree. And then to the right of the living tree is the spillway. And then there's also a concrete area that would get exposed and possibly get a bench for people to sit and watch the pond. That's existing infrastructure. And then this is all poison ivy, knotweed, mile a minute, wild raspberry, sumac, and other crap, for lack of a better word. It's very overgrown. Wild grape. And there is room to provide like a 3 to 6 foot buffer, even with removal of this, of lower brush and grasses at the pond edge, except where the spillway is in the concrete wall.
So this blue area is where you'd be looking to, this blue area and the yellow area is where you'd be looking to manage.
That's correct.
Native nuisance is kind of the way you're framing it, vegetation.
Most of it is invasives, but we would also manage some natives also to try and give some vistas so that people, right now you can't see the water except over Mrs. Spindler's lawn at 278.
So are you looking to clear right up to the water's edge or kind of cut down to like a
lower brush so that you can see over it at least, cut it down to 3 feet or so probably. depending on what's there. If it's invasive, we're going to remove it down to the stump. But everything will be able to regenerate, so then we can manage it better and trim it rather than total removal. It's just been neglected since COVID, to be honest. Between the rec department, myself as a volunteer, and the public works, it's really been neglected for a while.
And at the other end,
I have a question.
Go
This
ahead.
is Commissioner Boda. Can you just go back to where water is? You said that this is the water is coming from the street into this system.
The water comes. The inlet is pretty much around those two trees that are circled around the two red circles in the bottom left, and then straight to the left of that, there's a 24-inch, I think, it might be 12-inch, whatever, concrete culvert that goes to a storm drain, which is on Blackstone Avenue, which is at the far left of that photo, or the map, rather. And then so there's two storm drains there that tie in. There's a storm drain on the corner on Pine Orchard Road that ties in. And then this goes up to Anchorage Farm Road, which is further up, and there's quite a few storm drains on that street that drain into this as well. And then it drains out at the other end where the white line is at the top of the map to another small pond, and then a small creek, and another small pond, and then into Long Island Sound.
And again, this is Commissioner Boda. So the concern is these emergent, the emergent vegetation. That's the goal, is to remove some of this. And the thought is that you don't want it to become a shrubby marsh. I'm just wondering about, so the removal of some of that emergent vegetation, one of the functions that it provides is nutrient uptake. And you talked a little bit about algae earlier, and I'm also just noticing these what look like grass lawns that are abutting this water body. Yep. And I can't help but wonder how the removal of those emergent plants that do a really good job at taking up nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, which is what folks are putting on their lawns, if then that doesn't actually make the algae problem that you were referring to worse, as there's nothing but the algae to uptake those nutrients.
I don't know if I apologize. I don't think, first of all, I wouldn't know. I don't know if they'd be called emergent because they've been there for 4 or 5 years. But
so emergent just is the kind of vegetation as they're partially in the water, and so if I can just ask, what's your area? I'm sorry, you represent the town. You're a volunteer.
Yes, on the Young's Pond Park Commission. I'm chairman of the commission.
Okay, and do you? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to catch up a little bit.
I have no formal education in wetlands management other than reading a bunch of books and literature from the DEEP.
Okay. Has anybody who's worked on this plan considered that kind of the ecological impact because our regulatory requirement is to think about short and long-term impacts to wetlands and water courses, and the proposing of removing certain vegetation that's providing a very specific function that will then have a negative impact, particularly on water chemistry and on things like dissolved oxygen, the nutrients that are in the system, which then leads to things like algal blooms. And I'm just wondering if anybody who does have a background in this has looked at this plan and evaluated it.
The last time there was actually any type of formal evaluation was 2011 by the Extension Service, and in the last 13 years, hold on a second, I'll give you the picture number. I can find my phone. Hold on. The entire end of the pond has filled in with silt and debris, and that's another project that needs to be tackled. But let's see, can you see it from here? So if you look at photo 22, the next photo, all this stuff that's got yellow in it, there's about a 6-foot buffer now of silt and very marshy, clayey soil in this entire region. In some areas, it's almost 12 feet deep. That's slowly encroaching into the lake. You could see there's a patch of green to the right of the second two, where there's a small trough, and that's where the inlet has still carved a path through. And both of the homeowners have told me, of course we're not testing them or anything, but that they're doing composting and other techniques in order to limit nitrogen roll-off and using slower release fertilizers in their gardens and beds and stuff. So theoretically that's not it. But this water course is getting fed all the way up from Sunset Hill and Birch Road and other areas. So it's coming through. There's a drainage ditch on the back of Birch Road along the railroad tracks that feeds in. So it's getting a lot of water from Pine Orchard and Birch Road and Pine Orchard Road. So I think that's where a lot of the silt is. If you know that area, there's been a lot of construction in that area in the last five years or so. As far as nitrogen filtering goes, I don't know if the brush on the land is doing that much uptake. I'm sure the plants in the water are. That's probably why they're thriving. All these yellow flowers, I didn't take the time to identify them. I know they're considered semi-native, but they're also very aggressive in their growth and infill. But that whole area is now almost like a floating platform of silt and debris that's been taken up, and eventually we hope to pick up some of that, at least to preserve what we can of the water course.
Okay. So
I understand you're trying to do both. We're trying to do both things, but Chet's Pond was super overgrown, and we did clear it around it so that people could enjoy it. And I think the people in this area would like to be able to enjoy the pond instead of looking at a bunch of overgrown invasives and poison ivy.
Yeah. So this is Commissioner Boda. I hear what you're saying, and I certainly understand the desire. I think speaking for myself, from a regulatory standpoint, our role is to ensure that work that is done in around wetland and water courses does not have a negative impact on that water body, whatever it is, the wetland or water course. And I have expertise. I'm not an expert. You've said your background. And there's a lot of, I think, or maybe, or could be. And for us, that's a very difficult, that is not a good place from which we can make a determination. I cannot make a determination. And so I would be really interested in knowing a little bit more about the short and long-term impacts of your plan with regard to the water body itself? So that would require an expert.
Well, we don't have any money, so I don't have a budget. The Parks Department doesn't have any money for this, so we were going to do this as volunteers. I just watched the last meeting, Young's Pond, the supply pond, we're going to let them clear a path along the edge so people can enjoy the water and the trail. We're seeking to do something similar so people can at least enjoy a portion of the looking over the water. As far as native vegetation, if you want me to preserve anything that's there as much as we can commit to doing that. But I think removing the poison ivy and the other invasives, like the wild grape, we can cut that back somewhat. It's very aggressive. To at least give a view or two onto the pond, I think that would be, somewhat acceptable. I don't know how to determine those limits, though.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Mr. Holtz, you stated in the last meeting, if I remember correctly, that you weren't removing the cattails, you were just trimming them down. Is that correct?
We would trim them down to the water line.
Yes, so you weren't removing them.
Well, we weren't going to remove the roots or anything because that's much more invasive, but we were going to treat it with a herbicide. So I guess there's different parts of the project. There's, if you wanted to call it phases, there's phase 1, then there's area 2 and area 3. Area 2 is the area right along the roadway, and then area 3 is the area around the spillway, I guess.
But I think the point Commissioner Boda was trying to make that you were, or maybe I misunderstood it, that you were looking to remove the cattails.
Yeah. So this is Commissioner Boda. I think that
you were cutting them down to the water line.
Yeah, I think to Mr. Holtz, your concern. I think also live in town, also volunteer. And so, I hear what you're saying. And I think that there are parts of your plan that are feasible. I think that there's also, it may be that there are other folks in town who can offer some expertise. The folks, whether it's the land trust or there's quite a lot of people that have a background that can address some of these questions. And maybe it's kind of looking back at, I think there's a difference between trimming back cattails temporarily and then doing intentional herbicide to kill them back. Or I'm just, and certainly the removal of invasives is great. I mean, that's always something that is helpful. I think where my concern comes in is when you have these natives that are performing an important function to keeping this water body, because like I said, I can tell you that they are taking up nutrients that are making their way into that water body, as well as any of the like dog poop and goose poop that's around. Those cattails are providing an important function, and without plants like that doing that, the only place for those nutrients to go is algae, and then algae covers the surface, and then the algae dies off, and then all the oxygen gets consumed, and the critters that are living in that water body can't breathe, and we end up with die-offs, and that's never good. So there's just a little cascade of things that can happen. So I think that there are parts of your plan which are great. I think the thing that certainly caught my attention is the removal of cattails. So, but I'm just one person.
The problem I have with the removal of the invasives on the spillway side and along the roadway is, picture I took 75 decks of cards and I shuffled them all together and then I threw them on the floor and I asked you to just pick up the red ones. It's very difficult when you're ripping out wild vines and sumac and other garbage, for lack of a better word, to not damage the other foliage, for lack of a better word. So if I'm ripping out tons of knotweed and poison ivy and it's wrapped around another tree or a plant, we do the best we can to save what we have. But sometimes in previous rules, it's been easier to kind of cut everything back and then in the spring kind of sort it out and then cut back the really invasive stuff again and again or pull it up by its roots, or however you want to manage it, but within reason. But I know that I don't want to see this or Young's or any of the other ponds or lakes in town become meadows, despite the fact that that's the eventual thing when we're all not here anymore. But the algae blooms in this pond are horrendous already when we're having heavy rainfall, so we can't really control the people uphill. I'm sure the foliage and the plant life is doing some removal, but I don't think it's being very successful. I was down there today and we just treated the pond with algicide on the 9th. I don't know what the technique they used was, but you can see this is today's picture. You can see in a week's time, 2 weeks time that it's already growing. So that was not a successful application in my book. And in another photo that I have, I don't think I sent it to you, especially around the spillway, an area where theoretically they would have treated it the most. It was very thick and soupy. We're also looking, as you may recall, to do other techniques as well, which include, carp and possibly aeration and other stuff to help control the algae as well. But we'd like to preserve it as a lake, not as a swamp, which then becomes another problem with mosquitoes and everything else.
Commissioner Basserman, I guess, given the discussion that we've had, we have a risk here of undoing a function that exists now without any evidence on the record that says that that's not of concern. And I have a difficult time without some additional information regarding that, of just using aesthetics as the reason for what the plan right now indicates, because we've got certainly other situations in town who could be very similar. And again, without any kind of assessment by somebody qualified to make that assessment, it's difficult for this commission, given its regulations, I think, to just say, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I think there's additional evidence that's going to be needed.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I'm going to try and take us a step back real quick and kind of look at the application as it remains. So the concerns are native vegetation removal along the bank of the water course, essentially, and some trees, not necessarily so much on the bank, but next to the water course. And then the other concern is the cattails, removal of vegetation in the water course. I do want to speak briefly to the comment about the supply ponds. There certainly are some parallels, but I think one thing to keep in mind is that the trail over at supply ponds is running along a road. The reason for installing it was safety. I did mention that when vegetation's removed, we usually look to have vegetation replaced, and the challenges associated with that at the supply pond site. So with that in mind, I'm just going to throw out some considerations for the commission to consider, discuss, reflect on. I do think that it does make sense to manage the vegetation near the inlet, if for no other reason, for routine inspection, and to make sure that it's properly functioning. It also does provide an opportunity to create a point to view the pond from the park area. I've been by the site. I didn't really look at the trees that are dead or dying, but there certainly are some trees at best poor shape. I would certainly be in support of keeping the stumps in place to ensure there's no ground disturbance. I think one question I would have is if you're looking to remove, is it like 5 mature trees? You mentioned that Public Works has planted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looked like they planted a tree or two over here. And
There's one big tree by the
approving,
red circles, and there's 3 mature trees on the. There's 3 mature trees, or fairly mature trees, on the Blackstone Avenue side, and then at the property line we have an entire forest all the way up the side of the pond.
so I would suggest to the commission that you would want to see some mature trees replaced, because it looks like a mature tree was removed from 278 Pine Orchard Road at some point in the recent past. And that was shortly after that removal appears to be when the cattails started growing. So if you remove the mature trees on this side, you're probably going to start seeing cattails growing over here because it's going to become a very similar environment to what is onto the eastern side of the pond. So
yeah, I think that's a shadow. There was a tree down by the red box on at the corner of the red box. So that might be a shadow from that. I'm not sure.
there used to be a tree there.
Okay. I don't remember.
This is 2025. Or maybe not. Yes. There was a mature tree right here that has been removed.
Oh, was that 2013? Wow.
2008.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the introduction of sediment from that inlet and the increased sunlight probably both played a factor in the establishment of some of this vegetation on the southern end of the watercourse. But I do think that that is something to consider if you're looking to remove mature trees. We don't want to pull back all of the shade canopy from the watercourse. We want to make sure that we're replacing it. So I think that kind of provides a little bit more food for thought for commissioners. I certainly understand the concern about the removal of the cattails. I did mention to the applicant that I thought that might be a point the commission would be concerned with. I am not an expert. I'm not a botanist. I don't know if these are native cattails or if there's a broadleaf cattail, which is considered native, and a narrowleaf cattail, which is not. I don't know which one it is. They were. So, and it's possible the commission might be okay with some activities and not others. But I think if we can provide some more guidance for what you're looking for the various activities, that would be helpful. And maybe the applicant decides to break it up and, get what the commission is comfortable with now and reserve the rest of the project for another time, or, we table it and come back to it once additional information can be submitted. Also, it's my understanding that there's currently a deep aquatic pesticide permit for managing vegetation in the pond, but that does not include the cattails, and that the new application submitted to DEEP recently extends to the cattails. So we don't know if DEEP is going to give permission to treat the cattails yet or not either.
This is Commissioner Vestman. Jamie, would they identify the species of cattail in the response to the permit request?
I don't know that DEEP does site visits as part of their review process.
They only do it when there's a complaint.
This is Commissioner Bergman. Mr. Holtz, I feel for you because you are trying to educate yourself and do the best thing for this pond and for the park. And with the project of this scope, with carp and with herbicides and with potential dredging in the future, et cetera, the commission, in my experience, always has an environmental expert, to support the plan. And as Mr. Bassman and Ms. Voda said, it's really hard it's really hard to approve anything other than the removal of invasives by hand without disturbing soil. So I guess we're where we are. The carp, a question about the carp. What were they supposed to eat?
They eat a lot of the filamentaceous weeds and surface algae. They only are certain types. They're very particular, evidently. But that was the plan for that was if we got approved by DEEP was to drop 24 in there and then in the spring to see if they were making any headway. But then I guess if the algae's not taking up the nitrogen, that you know, I mean, as you know, it's all interlocking. So if we put the fish in and they eat the algae, then, you know, is there any more algae to, you know, obviously the DEEP regulations would allow up to 60 for this pond. So we're well within the limit at 24, but I'm concerned about the nitrogen upstream. I mean, we dropped the mailing in 2015 or 16 as part of the Pine Orchard Association campaign to try and get people to, you know, not fertilize their lawns with nitrogen-rich fertilizers and to use slow release instead of fast release and get rid of liquid fertilizer. And I don't know if we were somewhat successful or not, but it's probably time to do that again. But it certainly does have huge blooms after big rain. And I don't think the bloom right now is from this rain. It might be from the rain we had, whatever, 4 days ago or whenever it rained. I forgot. Maybe Saturday did it rain. But our hope was to at least get some of this stuff under control and then continue to look for better ways to do it and solutions. And yes, get a consultant involved. But, you know, all that stuff has to wait till next year. And, you know, to really get a true consultant in there, I was told it's going to cost between $3,000 and $5,000 for Mirror Lake and between $5,000 and $12,000 to get somebody to come in and just do a general study and recommend a basic plan. And that's not even with project management or anything, you know, more comprehensive. They do offer a somewhat inexpensive study on the water quality and some of the plant life and stuff through the co-op or the ag service, which we're scheduling for this spring. So, you know, maybe some of this discussion needs to wait to spring, but we'd at least like to get the spillway area open and stuff so we can see it. I haven't seen it in 4 or 5 years. It could be crumbling. I don't know. It's concrete and you know, field stone. So we'd at least like to get to see that and possibly the wall next to it so that we can evaluate that for repointing or any other stuff it has. So maybe if we could get approval to go 6 feet in either direction and remove most of the invasives and some of the native stuff, and then open another vista, for lack of a better word, kind of above the gap between the two so that people could see into the park. Maybe that's a good temporary solution. So then we can evaluate what we have and what we need to do further.
Jamie Frederick and one question. You said something about a wall adjacent to, is the wall above the bank or is it like does the wall extend into?
Well, it's probably filled in now. It's probably filled in front of it with all this stuff, but you can see it's to the right. If you look at the 2 and then you go over on my screen, it's like 2 inches. There's a gap where the channel is right near your mouse. Yep, that's the channel where the spillway water, the inlet, rather, I shouldn't call it the spillway. The inlet water is coming in right now. The inlet's elevated about 1.5 feet, so it does get a little bit of rolling momentum. And then to the right of that, in one of the photos, you can see in through the bushes. It's probably around photo 9 or something like that. You can see the concrete wall, and there was a structure there that held a bench at one time. Back, at least I was told it held a bench. It should have been in around 8 or 9.
Looks like I didn't get photo 9.
I took too many pictures.
Or 8. Um,
Let's see. Can you see this one? 15. You can just see it in
oh,
15.
is this what you're
Kind of-
talking about?
yeah. Yeah. So the spillway is to the right of that. So I think at one time maybe the spillway was bigger, or they had a gate in there or something. And then the spillway was rebuilt by Public Works to the right of it a little bit when they put the new culvert in. But there's a concrete elevated area there, and then there's all that infill in front of it. So we like to put a bench so people could sit there and watch the wildlife, for lack of a better word. That's the beginning. That thing goes to the north about 8 feet, and there's a concrete platform there. I don't know. Maybe it was used for a lease or something back in the day. I don't really know. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Given your emphasis on the spillway, would you be willing to come back to our next meeting, which I think is in 2 weeks, with a plan for the spillway? You mentioned two things: one, clearing a 6-foot parcel, and then something about a vista above. I guess if we were to look at a spillway plan as the fall plan, and then you can get the necessary resources for the rest of it at some later date. Does that sound like something that would work for you, given the fact that you'd like to do something sooner rather than later?
I'm amenable to that. I'd like to get the dead trees on the Public Works schedule, if I could. And then as far as the spillway goes, I'd like to at least have clearance to do some exploratory cutback, because I can't even see it right now to take pictures of it and show you it. And show you the area. You can see how dense all that foliage is. There's maybe when the leaves fall a little bit more, I could, but I mean, if I could at least remove some of the vines and stuff right on the spillway, maybe a 4-foot wide path, then I could show you that area and we can expand it from there.
Are you saying, you'll come back in 2 weeks with the necessary photos and details about how we're going to clear the spillway and
yeah, sure. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So another way of potentially resolving this is if the commission's comfortable with 4 feet or 6 feet off of the spillway, maybe that gets reviewed now and the rest of it gets, if the applicant is amenable to essentially withdrawing the cattail portion and the other portions of the outstanding information for review at a later date, maybe we get that part moving forward and the rest of it comes for review, and I can have a conversation with the applicant about more of what the information the commission will be expecting is prior to another submission of an application. But that way we're not necessarily talking about it 3 meetings in a row unless there's specifically still information the commission wants. So one thought is, if you're comfortable with any sort of distance off of the inlet for vegetation management, and then I think the other item is the dead trees that were identified. And if you are okay with the dead trees being removed with a condition that a certain number of trees get planted in place, if you're okay with me approving the species and the location, that might be one way of moving forward. Or if you think it's important that you see that documented on a plan, we can continue it to the next meeting.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, can you tell the rough percentage of invasives versus natives at the spillway area?
So I did really briefly stop out at the site today while I was going out to another site. I did not do a large assess. I didn't really look at the vegetation, to be honest, and I didn't have this with me, so I didn't recall where exactly the inlet was. I did pay attention to the vegetation over in this area because I was trying to look at the cattails. There is a lot of poison ivy. There is definitely some sumac, I believe, a low growing there's a lot of grape that's growing on top of everything. I do think there's certainly a lot of overgrowth in the area, things that are growing on top of other things.
Yeah, if you look at 8 and 9 on the photos, it shows the unbelievable amount of barberry and the other little burr and the wild grape.
Again, I don't think we have those photos. I don't know if you want to try and email them to me again.
Okay. Oh, you don't have 9?
I'll double check the email, but it goes from 7 to 11.
Okay, well, there you can see that's similar. That's the same area. That's the spillway is to the right of the 11. And 12 shows more of it.
This is Commissioner Boda. How accessible in terms of distance is the inlet from like a regular place where you can stand and then you're not in all of this overgrowth? So in other words,
not accessible at all, man.
Sorry?
It's not accessible at all.
So let me try to clarify. So you're in a grassy area or wherever your car is parked. How far is it from where you are to the inlet?
Can you bring up the site plan? The inlet is right by the red circle, the top red circle, by the blue arrow.
And so how do you access, like, where are you coming from? Because so what
You can
what
walk
I
in
heard
on
Jamie,
either corner.
sorry?
You can walk in on either corner, or if you were going to bring in a piece of equipment, there is a path on either corner of, well, either point of the triangle, I guess, to access that area. There's also a huge culvert that does cut through the center of this, so that would limit future tree planting somewhat.
Okay, this is Commissioner Boda, because Jamie had said, she had mentioned a few minutes ago, kind of starting with a distance, and what I'm trying to visualize is Jamie, when you said 4 feet or 6 feet, are you talking about like a 4 or 6 foot perimeter around the inlet? Are you talking about a 4 foot wide path that goes from the point of entry to the inlet? Is it 4 feet? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? Like I'm trying to, and maybe Jamie, you can help with
What's
this
the
question.
depth of the vegetation that's to be removed? I think is what you're saying.
Like
from the lawn to the pond.
Yeah, it's about 6 to 8 feet, but I think we would want to go from the center line of, let's say, the inlet, 3 to 4 feet in each direction, or 6 feet in each direction. So that would be perpendicular to the inlet, and then it would go from basically the face of the inlet where it dumps into the pond backwards to the grassy area. So there would be a 8 to 12 foot wide path. And then we could selectively let what we want grow back towards the edges and keep the middle somewhat clear.
And then you said it's you're envisioning an 8 to 12 foot wide path. How long is the path?
I would say it's physically 8 feet long.
Okay.
Probably less, but.
Yeah, the estimate is good. That's helpful. Again, this is Commissioner Boda. I think that it is our practice, and it's in our regs that, the stormwater management, things like inlet work and on stormwater conveyance and things like inlets, that is certainly something that would be important and within the goal of our work. And so I would certainly be, like Jamie said, amenable to getting that inlet accessible. And so what you've described is an 8 to 12 foot wide path, which is approximately 8 feet long to get to the inlet, and then the inlet clearing.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we also discussed dropping those couple of dead trees in place and then replacing them. Jamie had mentioned replacing them. She can look at, what you're considering and do an agent approval if on the given trees themselves. And that those are two things that I think I would be amenable to. Well, especially under Jamie's kind of oversight, so that we could get that, and then the remaining portion could come back to us. But again, I'm just one person.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. One point of clarification: would the 8 to 12 feet wide off of the inlet accommodate the also gaining access to that concrete platform that you were talking about?
On that side, it would probably be, so it would be, let's say we went 6 to 8 feet on one side, and then it would probably be 12 to 16 on the other to cover that concrete platform to the north. Right? North? I think it's north.
This side?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, you lost me a little bit. So we've got the inlet, and then
So
the platform
it'd be 6 feet or so on one side, and then it would be up to 16 feet wide on the other side to get to that concrete wall and inspect that as well.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Why are we extending to the wall at this time?
I was Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I was wondering if it would encompass that area or not, or if that would be another issue for a later date.
Is that part of the stormwater conveyance, or that platform is something to do with not stormwater conveyance?
I don't think it has anything to do with stormwater conveyance, to be honest. It would be more of a aesthetic, and then we could at least get a bench in place, which the Pine Orchard Association has been asking for years.
Sure.
And accommodate them somewhat.
So why doesn't that come in as a second piece, and we'll focus on that first step of just getting the inlet opened up?
That's fine.
What are other commissioners? I'm not speaking for anybody else, but that's where my head is.
Seems that, this Commissioner Bassman, seems like that's a good way to get the additional information we're going to need for the larger picture, considering, some of the long-term issues that plan probably presents, as opposed to making sure that we have a functioning spillway in the near term. So I'm okay with that.
And then procedurally, we'd have this, and then the rest of the brush and tree removal at the next meeting with more information. And then the cattails, I would withdraw that portion of the application, and then we would resubmit that when we have more information and possibly a consultant on board.
Yes.
Sounds correct.
That sounds like a
Or
right.
does that portion of the application just get tabled and then it just sits, which is easier, which is the best way to approach it? I apologize.
So I think there's two options logistically. One is, so just to take a quick step back. So if you keep the application on the table and the commission's not making a decision on the application, but greenlighting the clearing of 8 to 12 feet wide, 8 foot long as like an as of right activity, we could do that. Alternatively, if the commission is making a decision to issue a permit for that activity, that we can't split it up into two permits. So either a permit would have to be issued, or you'd have to determine it's as of right. If you're issuing a permit, then I think you would have to request that the applicant pull out the things that you're currently not ready to approve, so that it can be an application you can act on. And then the applicant would resubmit for those other items once the additional information can be obtained.
Okay. And then just a question logistically. So if you're pulling out a grapevine and the grapevine continues into the non-approved area, you just cut it to that limit, or are you allowed to pull it the rest of the way out?
I'm not gonna know where every single grapevine out there was or wasn't.
Well, I'll go down and stake it, whatever you approve for a limit, and then if anybody wants to come by before the next meeting, I'm not going to get it done in the next 2 weeks anyway, so I'll stake whatever the approved limit is, and then anyone can come down and take a look through it at any time if they'd like. We welcome all in Pine Orchard.
So, so you're saying you won't have the vegetation removed before the next meeting?
Hold on. Oh, I don't know how quickly you can act. So if I had approval to do it for this weekend, I could do that. I do have time on Sunday, but then my time dries up until the 4th.
Right. Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. The reason why I ask is because then maybe again, like I said, the commission can't split the application into two pieces. You either table the application or approve parts of it and the other parts be withdrawn. So the commission said the activities of removing invasives were as of right last time, so that's how that got approved. So long and short of it, I guess, is would it make more sense for maybe me to meet with Jeff out on site, get some photos, some better knowledge of what's out there for the commission to do a bit more of a holistic review of the vegetation removal outside of the water course at the next meeting? Or do you want to just move forward with the 8 to 12 feet wide vegetation removal at the inlet and withdraw the rest and table it for consideration at a later time?
This is Commissioner Bassman. I like the latter.
Commissioner Begeman, I agree.
Jeff, does that address your immediate concerns?
We're gonna table the portions of the application that are unapplicable right now, and we're gonna have conditional approval to remove the spillway foliage, and then come back in 2 weeks, which is on.
So essentially, if the commission were to act on part of the application, the rest of the application would become null and void, and a new application would have to be submitted. So it wouldn't necessarily be in 2 weeks unless you were to submit a new application in that time frame. But there might be more information needed before you're ready to submit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let's move forward on the spillway stuff, and then we can work on the other stuff. I mean, it wasn't how the whole thing started, but I appreciate that, and maybe that'll be a way for y'all to judge me as having goodwill and good intentions.
And we can meet out there and kind of take a look at some of the other things and kind of discuss.
So maybe I can get some information on the other foliage and buffers and the cattail type and everything else. Although I think it's just I think it's called a great long cattail, so it's not considered that invasive. It's just considered very aggressive.
So, this is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, given the fact that this was an application, do we need a vote to isolate the spillway portion?
Yeah, so I think the appropriate way to move forward would be to approve the clearing off of the spillway 8 to 12 feet wide, centered off the inlet, and that any additional vegetation in the upland or wetland area, vegetation removal in the upland or in the upland area, and any removal of the cattails would require additional information under a new permit application.
So are the dead trees included in the portion?
does the commission feel ready to address the dead trees now, or would you rather, or do you need additional information on what's involved in that removal? Like I said, if you were to approve the removal of the trees, I would suggest requiring something to be planted to replace it.
Yeah, why don't we concentrate just on the spillway, because location, type of species, and all that kind of stuff would have to be considered if we're going to be planting stuff. And it sounds like if time is important here, the spillway seems to be at the top of the list.
And I will just comment that the commission, should there be a storm and one of the trees gets damaged and it's a hazard, we're not going to say you have to wait until you get approval from us. That hazard could be addressed. So we're not looking to maintain hazards or anything like that, but I don't think any of the trees are at that point right now. Granted, I'm not an arborist.
You're an optimist. All right, thank you very much for your time. So Mr. Chairman, I think you were asking if you need to have a vote.
Correct.
So this is Commissioner Boda. I will make a motion for application BRIW number 25.08.01, 25 Blackstone Ave, that we approve the section of the permit application to clear vegetation of the inlet, as well as a 8 to 12 foot wide path centered off the inlet to gain access, and with the condition that the remaining portions of the application be withdrawn and resubmitted at a later time.
I'd second that. Commissioner Basserman. Any further discussion? Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Commissioner Sotomayor.
Commissioner Sotomayor, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye.
All right.
We have
Your time and your tolerance.
Thank you, Mr. Host. We do
Thank you for all your
appreciate
efforts.
your work.
Yeah.
Next up, 250803. You indicated, I think, Jamie, this was withdrawn.
Yes. Did receive confirmation is withdrawn.
And I thought in your introductory comment, you also said C.
IW 250804 39 Prospect Hill Road, residential addition, new septic. There's been a request to continue the matter to the October 9th, 2025 meeting, which I am in support of.
We have enforcement, cease and correct 250901, 15 Pinewood Road, clearing an encroachment into the wetland area. This is a continuation of the show cause hearing. Are we looking for additional information on this one?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I did meet with the property owner yesterday to touch base on where they are in the process. They are working on getting a time for the soil scientist to come back out and develop a planting plan. They're also corresponding with various departments and agencies to determine what approvals are going to be required and what level of site plan will be required. And I think they're going to need some additional time. So I'm recommending that we continue the show cause hearing to October 23rd. If they're ready beforehand, they can contact me. We can try and get it on the October 9th meeting. But they are working on a resolution, and I don't think it's worth our time to take up before then unless they have the information needed to review.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that? He's correct. 220502, 35 Bayberry Lane, vegetation removal. You want to lift this order?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So we got 3 very on-time reports for this, which makes me happy because unfortunately that's not always the case. And they were all supportive of no invasives, and the last one said they didn't think further monitoring is required. The order said 3 years minimum. I think it's appropriate to lift the order because they have, I would say, a thriving wetland area, and I didn't see any invasives when I went out there, and the soil scientist didn't identify any in his report. I think I put all the reports in the Dropbox. They have photos of the wetland area. And you can see in the third report that it's really kind of come in nicely. And when I was out there today, the cattails were, for those of you that aren't aware, and that last photo, or photo 2, it is cattails, not Phragmites that you're seeing there. So if the commission agrees, we would need a motion to lift the order. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try and address them.
And with that introduction,
Come on, somebody else
nobody
can do it.
wants to not lift this order? I make a motion that we lift the order as suggested by staff.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. I second that.
I can't believe there's any further discussion. So, Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begman, aye.
Commissioner Goklowski,
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Sotomayor, aye.
Oh, wonderful. Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All righty. No application for receipt. We have other business, 71 Midwood Road. This has been tabled until the next meeting. No agent approvals. Jamie, you had indicated the Kakiwik annual meeting. Was there any comment that you wanted to inform the commission regarding that?
Sure. So if anyone wants to register for the event, please let us know. I believe the deadline for early registration is, of course, I didn't write it down. It's mid-October, so if you can try and let us know, we'll probably do a last call some point early in October via email. But let us know when we can register you. We would need to know any of the information, what sessions you want to be registered for, and I think there's something about if you have any dietary special needs or anything like that. It is a Saturday event, but it is a good one. So let us know.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Question: Do the commissioners get a copy of the habitat sent to them directly, or not, Jamie?
No, I don't. I don't know anyone that receives a copy of the habitat directly. It would be nice.
The question is, since it's electronic, it's not a printed copy anymore. Is that something that commissioners would like? I don't want to, put something in your inbox if it's just going to get deleted.
They do post the habitat to their website.
Yeah.
It's usually quarterly, so you could also check. I usually try to check, and I may or may not know the vice president of Kakiwik, and they may or may not tell me when there's a new habitat, and then I blast it out to everybody. So
if anybody wants it directly, let Jamie know, and we'll get it on a list. Anything else? Any other comments from the commission this evening?
Y'all can just wish my students luck tomorrow. They are testing on the nitrogen cycle, so tonight's discussion was quite timely.
Nice.
Would have been interesting if anyone tuned in tonight. All right. Enjoy the week.
Frederick in the Wetland HOA. I got one quick announcement. I just wanted to let the commission know we have hired a zoning wetland enforcement officer, and we have posted the position for the inland wetland associate. And I will be in touch, as we proceed with, any any changes as we move forward. But for the time being, you will still very much see my face a lot, and I will always be a resource for, all things in the wetlands and water courses related.
This is Commissioner, Jamie, are we still on for early October for this cut to the new system?
Yes, but I mean, it's not going to be like a hard cut. Like there's nothing that I think, especially from your vantage point, that will, effectively change October 1st. You will be introduced to new faces as things develop, but I will still be your go-to person.
All righty.
Motion
Good night,
to
folks.
adjourn.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Right.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.